Hello, everyone. Welcome to Psychology and Spirituality, a bridge to a better life discussion. My name is Marcia Trajano. I'm your host, and with me are my dear friends, Dr. Anahy Fonseca and Jussara Korngold. She is the co-sponsor, the host as well, and the founder of this entire program. So thank you both for being here. Don't know if you want to say hello to the audience.
Hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here again.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Jussara?
great. Hello, everyone. We are
That
here.
is awesome. That is awesome to be here amongst friends. You and I are here very happy. But the psychology and spirituality weekly talks are based on the works, as I mentioned before, by Joanna de Angelis. And we're here to offer this space for us to talk. And when we talk about, we can even correlate, compare, but most importantly, expand our own spirituality concepts from this psychological lens so that we can bring insights to ourselves to become, to feel better, to get to a better life. Self discovery is the main topic of today's episode, but according to Joanna de Angelis, and you can find that in the reference book that I would like to share with you. Unfortunately, not yet translated into English, but it's just a phenomenal work reflecting the soul. With the chapter on self discovery written by Gelson Roberto, who is the person behind this entire work that we're doing here. He is the one who elaborated the program, the topics, etc. So thank you, Gelson, for being with us through your book, through your chapter of your book. But in any case, um, our conversation to you today is really more of an invitation so that all of us can, when we're ready, embark on our journey of self discovery, self awareness, and growth. But, anyways, Anahy, Jussara, you may find myself going completely crazy here, but it's it is the one of those days that I'm feeling ready to watch something on TV, and I turn on just very randomly to a documentary in uh, actuality it was published, I believe, in 2020 about Taylor Swift. And Taylor Swift, for those who do not know her, she's an American singer songwriter, and she's known for her her songs, her lyrics, and of course, a very young woman who became quite famous. So, anyways, in the documentary, it's called Miss Americana. She it's just really beautiful because she completely opens up about her values, and her values come and what we're going to talk about what led to those values, but what is a result of those values are really um, the pressures of being famous to being accepted, being welcomed. It's almost like an addictive, she didn't use those words, but this addiction to the applause. She really made herself feel fulfilled every time she got an award, she received the applause, etc. And all of it, thank goodness, went downhill with several crises of public opinion, etc., etc. But she talks about, and as she talked about, I thought, wow, this is great because Joanna de Angelis questions around self-discovery, and specifically from her book, The Integral Human Being, aligns quite well, right? So, if I may, before I pass on to the two of you to talk about it, but in that book, she mentions to us that on one hand, um, we carry, this personal and collective unconscious, right? So this is our personal, more material, but collective. And correct me if I'm wrong here, Anahy, when I explain, but we carry the unconscious, and they make up the complete archives of all of our experience. What are we talking about? Well, our race, our cultural traditions, and all the elements that make up who we are. They are really the sum of all of our experience. And because of it, they really largely influence our behavior. So this is on one hand. On the other hand, we are the fruit, the result of our bringing, our education, our habits, both psychological as well as physiological, phenomena that are always influencing us to behave this way. So we have two directions or guidance for us, but Joanna de Angelis brings us the third one, which is a required one that is done only through self-discovery in our inner transformation, right? So if we think about it, and I'm trying to conclude my thought process here, but if we think about it, it is easy to see the correlation between aspirations, right? Think Taylor Swift, aspiration to receive a Grammy Award, right? And I believe she had so many, she doesn't have enough room for them anymore. But between our aspirations, our tendencies, our fears, our conflicts, our accomplishments, all of those that we bring and we're able to do, but how they correlate with the values that we inherit. So if we speak the language of Joanna, we can say that our unconscious continuously dictate what to do, what to accomplish. It also leads us toward this direction or that direction. And the big paradox here is that while we are led to a certain type of behavior, value, goals, etc., our lives, and this is the big paradox, everyone, our lives contain mechanism to push to that third direction, right? Which is maybe different from the other two. So we are compelled to a place of development, of growth, of progress. I believe we could use the conscious expansion, right? The evolving spirit that we have through that inner transformation objectives. So the problem here, as I said, it is really a paradox because we have all this, and I put in my hands behind me because we have all this baggage that pushes us to behave a certain way, but inside, we have a third way that keeps us pushing us yet a different direction. And that leads us to this crisis or this confusion and this search for clarity, but we don't know how. Joanna de Angelis, in the book The Integral Human Being, talks about the psychological problems awaiting a solution. And when we say that, we say psyche, the soul, right? So it's the spiritual problems that we have that are pushing us to look for a solution. So I'm pushing back to the two of you to talk a little bit about what is she talking about and how does it fit with the topic of self-discovery.
It's a very great beginning, right? Talk about Taylor Swift and all, this complex question of who are we actually? I think that's the basic question that we are trying to discover or talk today, because Joanna is talking about self-discovery, right?
Correct.
So, why do we have to discover ourselves? I think that's the main thing. And you brought, Marta, I think a very, it's a wonderful example because Joanna also says that it is the greatest challenge for the contemporary individual, the self discovery, right? And she says that the goal of self-discovery is to be aware of ourselves. So who are we actually? Why do we have to be aware of ourselves? And you taught you I think it's brilliant that you brought Taylor Swift, because everybody knows her. She's a great singer and songwriter, very creative. But from where this all this creativeness comes? Within
Yes.
each one of us, our talents. And I know that Jussara has talked about that. We want to listen to what she has to say. But I just wanted to,
Ju, I just want to say, I
yeah.
immediately thought of you and the talent of the parables immediately as Anahy was talking. So we are in tune and we want to hear from you. But go ahead, Anahy.
Yeah, because then I would just bring a little bit of the psychological stuff. Then we want to hear Jussara talking about the spiritual also aspect, because it's everything interconnected. So
Mhm.
in this chapter that you talked about, Gelson talks about the mind as being the manifestation of the spirit, right? And he says it comprises thought, feeling, and will. Okay. So, and he talks about thought, feeling, and will as forces of the spirit. And of course, we know that the spirit, a spiritual dimension, you were talking about the unconscious, and we know there's the personal unconscious, where
Mhm.
our complexes, our neurotic conflicts, let's say, they press our egos, our personal consciousness about who we are here in this personality, right? But we are talking also, and Joanna uses Jung. So when we talked about the collective unconscious, the transpersonal dimension of the psyche. So from where, let's say, our higher consciousness talks, let's say, tries to talk to our egos, to our smaller consciousness. So we are talking, we could say, of our human consciousness that is here as we understand ourselves, right? Our personality, and the ego refers to our personality, and our soul consciousness, let's say, our higher self, Jung's self, capital S, right? That Joanna says is our spirit within this psyche that we are now here now. The spirit is reincarnated, so we are a psyche here, right? Our soul is expressing itself. So we could also talk about that. I think it's more, it's easier. We could talk about human consciousness and soul consciousness, let's say, our higher self. So the thing is, Marcia and Jussara and everybody else, I think that Joanna talks about our greatest challenge in modern days, our days, and about materialism, right? The way that
Yeah.
we think ourselves as matter. So when we do like that, when we consider ourselves just matter, that when you die, everything ends. Of course, young people and also not so young, right? A lot of people that connect only with the ego consciousness and our complexes, like our inner child, our mother father complex, and stuff like that, will keep on having, let's say, conflicts during the lifetime of fulfilling some other, some other expectation, other people's expectations about ourselves, as you said, that Taylor Swift said in talking about her own life. So of course, then I'm trapped
Yes.
in this worldview where I am only matter. I live only this life. So everything I do is, I'm totally pressed that I have to be nice. People have to like me, and I
Yes.
have to fulfill what everyone thinks of, thinks about myself and expect from me. And I totally get trapped in the ego, right? And thinking that it's only that. So this is a trap, people. And I think to view, Gelson also says in this chapter about viewing this life in a literal and concrete way without symbolic life, because the symbolic life is what connects the ego to the soul consciousness, to our higher selves. And this makes it literally, as you said, we have all depressions, anxieties, burnout. This is the way to sickness, let's say, to illnesses and diseases, from the body, from the mind, from our souls, because we get trapped in this reality that will have an end, because everything material has an end, right? So I have to have the most of life that I can get, because it's going to end. And I'm totally out of communication, let's say, not totally, because our soul consciousness is always there, irradiating from the collective unconscious, the transpersonal dimension of our psyches. But the thing is that the ego is not open and doesn't get mature enough.
Mm-hmm.
That's the risk for young people that are not educated for the spiritual life, let's say. And I do want to listen to about that, because the thing is that so when I disconnect from our spiritual reality, I disconnect from myself, from my inner, the depths of my psyche, my inner world, from where all my creative potentials arise, right? So we know that a lot of artists, for instance, when they live like this, it's always trying to please the outside world. But at
Mm-hmm.
some point, they get, as you said, Marcia, they get disconnect. Even to create is difficult for them,
Mm-hmm.
because creativity comes from the soul, doesn't come from the ego, people.
Yeah.
So that's why it's so important. And I think Joanna say it's our biggest challenge. But I do want to hear what Jussara has to say about that.
So let's talk about the talent of the parables, Jussara, or do you have any thought process?
And
Yeah.
I really wanted to continue from
Uh,
where I mentioned, because
mm,
when I was preparing for today for our conversation here, I was very intrigued with this, this phrase by Joanna de Angelis, where she says that the greatest challenge for the contemporary individual is self-discovery. And I was thinking, why, is it is today, and why it has to be today. And of
mhm,
course, reasoning, thinking about it, I came to the conclusion that from our perspective, since we are immortal spirits, immortal beings, we come over and over through the reincarnations, of course, and understand that the spirit goes through a process of maturity. Of course, she's mentioning that up to this point, we didn't even have enough maturity to think about ourselves as being an immortal spirit. So when we talk about, like you say, the young people and others as well that do not have any kind of spiritual understanding about themselves, self-discovery of what exactly? Of my emotions, of how certain events in my past influenced me today, or caused me some trauma, or made me grow. So I think that sometimes when we go and think about self-discovering, it's also,
mm,
what is the purpose? I don't even know how much longer I'm going to be on this earth. And this is when she says, and all the knowledge and everything that she brings to us is this unquietness of the spirit that we have, that even without realizing that much why we are going after that, there is this urge.
Yes.
There is this urge that somehow is like an unavoidable path, like a road that I have to go through, where I somehow have to be in touch with myself. And it's interesting that here he mentions also Nietzsche, and that famous statement that you were searching for the worst and you found yourself. I don't know about that, not necessarily, right? But in a way, I'm looking for things, and I start seeing that I am the greatest treasure. Like, like I have a treasure map, and I start looking for, a wealth that I think is something else, but it is myself. Like Anahy was saying, when we start realizing our processes, our emotions, the way we behave, how certain things triggers us,
Mhm.
and putting this all together with the talents, like we were talking about the parable of the talents, referring to how in that parable Jesus talks about a Lord that gives to his three servants a different quantity of talents, that in that way, in that time, represented a quantity of money. But then we know that Jesus was not necessarily talking about money, but talking about resources, right?
Mhm.
And then the resources and how each one of them reacted. Both of them were actually capable of doubling the resources, and the other one just said, I'm not going to do anything with that. And I think this is where we are now, when we have this so much knowledge in terms of what we are destined to. And it's like we want to voluntarily blind our eyes or shut our eyes, because it implies responsibility. I fear that if I open the Pandora box, what is going to come out of it, right? And how can I control all of that and put all back together again? So
But Jussara, the thing, yeah, if I may, just I don't want you to stop talking, but just the thought that came to my mind is the image that comes to my mind. Why is it so hard to get into the road of self-discovery? And to me, this what we bring is our, like a computer, it's the default setting, right? It's what's comfortable. It's what we know, inherently or not. This is what we know, right? The values that are valued, material or not, but they're valued. That's what I know. And I think that Pandora box, as you mentioned, when you open it, it's exactly the unknown, what has not been perhaps given to me. A map is not given to me. The trajectory is not given to me yet. And you alluded to that. We all have come to, at some point in our lives, of just discomfort, right? The sense that I'm not fulfilling. So going back to the parable, the talents that you're talking, I wonder if the person who buried the talent was afraid of losing, and the fear is more of, I don't know what to do with it. Right? But go ahead. That's
you
just a
said
thought that came to my mind.
the main point
Yeah.
of the parable actually is also talking about fear, right? And what
Mm,
fear can do to us. But thinking and make a connection with everything and with everyone that already went through any kind of therapeutic work, right?
mhm.
they will know about that when we start. If I'm going, figuratively speaking, be looking for a treasure, like we're saying.
Yeah, yeah,
For a treasure, right? I go into this road with this map and looking for a treasure. What happens when I get into the world, this place that it's supposedly I'm going to find the treasure? Well, in each and every of those stories, first you have to start digging the dirt.
yeah,
And I
yeah,
mean, digging the dirt and
yeah.
dirt and dirt and dirt until you find enough stamina to continue and finally find the chest, which is still not the treasure, right? Now
Mm.
you finally found something hard there. You find the chest, but then you still have to open the lock. Right there's so many phases and so many stages that we could make a, relation with what we are talking about here. So why this self-discovery process is so hard? It's because, before we reach the treasure, we're going to have to deal with some dirt.
Yes.
And this is not easy. And just for me to complete, I was remembering, we mentioned that already. I was blessed enough to go and visit the house of Jung.
Mm.
And there was there, those stained glasses, 3 stained glasses that represented to the martyrdom of Jesus. The first one when he's going into the Golgotha mountain, and until he did the second one, he's crucified, and the second one where he's is going to be removed, and then the resurrection. And I asked the woman why he had that in his room, right? And that she said that he liked it he liked it that because he saw the therapeutic process as being one of of you having to go through this extreme sacrifice for to be born or reborn again. So I was thinking that when we are talking about self-discovery, that's what happened, and we feel afraid, and maybe we stop the process on purpose because we don't want to deal with that, and it's easier to pretend that everything's okay, that I'm happy enough, accommodated enough, and
It's a defense mechanism, right? I'm not ready. And I think Joanna says that even, right? I think she says, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think she says the process can be easy if you just start where you are,
yeah.
right? Just look at yourself
Mm-hmm.
and become aware. So this is a pause. And to me, in a world that we're so distracted by so many different stimuli and even data points, right? So we want to say, no, I'm cool. I'm just joking here. I'm cool with this process. I'm gonna dig, but I use a process, a therapeutical process that is actually a process of gathering data external to me, not inside out, but outside in. So it's superficial and can actually be fraught with biases, right? A
Mm-hmm.
bias toward my true self says I am, I don't know, super selfish. Well, no, because I don't want to be selfish, so I'm gonna start to put that in my shadow or the dirt that you're referencing to. So there, it's complicated. It requires courage, and we can just say, "I'm not ready." Let's just start being aware of my moment, and when I'm ready, then I'm gonna go deep, dig the treasure, find my map. And I love your imagery, by the way, Jussara. I think
Just
it's
one point,
perfect.
it's
Yeah,
very much like a child saying, I don't want to grow up.
yeah,
So
true.
it's better we own it,
Yeah,
right? So enjoy while you're a child, but you are going to grow up. And
yes,
whether we like it or not, whether it's going to be painful, very hard on us, we will have to go through this process.
beautiful. Anahy, do you have anything to add? You look
Yeah.
like you want to talk.
No, I think it's very important. I was thinking about inner healing because
Mhm.
Joanna brings a lot of techniques for healing. But we wouldn't have to heal something that it's not sick, right? That it's
That's
not in
right.
disharmony. And I agree with Jussara. I don't agree very much with Nietzsche's words about, oh, how bad is to find myself. Of course, we have a lot of shadow work to do still, right?
Can you define shadow work, Anahy, for the
Yeah,
audience?
because
Yeah.
what for Jungians, for us, we say that when we turn our attention from the outside world to the inner world, right? We are so the ego trying to look at the psyche, right? Because the ego is that complex. Jung says is a complex that it's part of the self of the psyche, and it's our personal consciousness, let's say, from in the psyche here. So when the in the center of consciousness, so when the ego just turns the attention from the outside world to the inner world, the first let's say character that it's going to that the ego is going to find is the shadow. So our shadow aspects, everything that the ego itself doesn't want to acknowledge, that has repressed or denied, right? So, for instance, going back to the beginning of our talk when you talked about Taylor Swift. So, why is that so difficult, especially for young people that still have, to do a lot of ego work in a sense of maturing the ego, and working with the inner conflict? You guys were talking about fears, insecurities, um, things like that, right? So when we turn our attention to ourselves, to our inner world, we are going to find everything that ego it doesn't want to pay attention to. That's why it's so hard. Dig in the dirt. I love this expression, right? It's kind of, but what is the dirt? We are all human beings. Why are we so afraid of ourselves? Of course, we have negative aspects. Let's say, who doesn't never gets jealous or doesn't never has be envious of someone or angry at someone, of course, this is not cool, but it's human. We all have this kind of emotions. The problem is not having these emotions. The problem is not, again, as Joanna said, not being aware of them, right? And Jesus says that I think this is very important, bringing back spiritist knowledge that our thoughts that create are the origin of our actions, our behaviors in the world. They are guided by our will and the intensity of our feelings. So we have to have a strong will to face ourselves. But if I think that I'm so bad, that I only, and that wow, a lot of dirt, I get, well, I'm get lazy. I'm not going to pay attention to all of that. I will feel down and everything. But I think it's the great images that Jussara brought, because let's clean the house, people. It's not that tough, it's great. Let's put some music, or let's meditate. Let's connect to the source of creativity that we have within us,
Mhm.
and let's do the work, the cleaning of our inner houses, so that we
Mhm.
can dig, so all this dirt goes away. It's not that hard. I mean, I have been doing this myself and have helping other people to do for decades now. All right. And it's so cool when we see, I will give an example, a clinical example, but it's so cool when we see it happening. You're finding the treasure opening. We have to trust to believe. We don't want to remember how Nietzsche ended, right, Jussara? So I prefer to connect to knowing that there is all this treasure that is available. and it's a power of my spirit that can manifest in this life. We don't have to wait for, other lives. Now, as we were talking about, Joanna is asking us to pay attention. If we just do a little work, it's not that awful. I mean,
Mhm.
and this week, for instance, I kind of felt, I'll give you a secret here that we can share with our listeners. Therapists or analysts, of course, we know, we get a little anxious. It's not that we connect in a sense that I have to separate, of course, what it's material from psychic material from my patients, clients, and what it's my own material, inner issues. But of course, we say, "Oh, I hope this is going to work," because you are listening, you are trying not to say anything, only to help, see some stuff in the unconscious that the person itself is paying attention. But what I wanted to tell you is that it happened this week, so it's a synchronicity. Almost 89 years old man, a grandfather who has been suffering from very different illnesses. Okay, he has had a stroke.
Mm.
Almost half of the brain is gone. Bad lungs, only one kidney. Okay, so it's what we call palliative care, the end of life care. Okay,
Mhm.
but he wanted to stay alive to dance with his granddaughter in
Ah,
her 15th birthday, dance the waltz, in her 15th birthday. And, I'm sorry, but I just have to give you some aspects. Here in Brazil, we are suffering a lot with the burns, that are going on, if the fires that are going on all over Brazil. I don't know if the press is talking about that, but it's awful and it's a lot. Okay, it's happening like almost two-thirds of Brazilian land, and the one that it's the land that it's not with fire, it's with the air is totally, with a lot of stuff. So it came here to the very south of Brazil. Even if here there is not any fire, we had lots of water this year, but not fire. Every
can I just share for those people who do not know Brazil, and I'm putting my hand up, right? So Brazil is like this shape of my hand, and with here, not here, here being Amazon, and all the
yeah,
way down close to Uruguay and Argentina is where Anahy lives. And pretty much, no, this has been burned, right?
yeah,
In
yeah,
fires,
two-thirds. Yeah,
so we can call it arson, we can call wildfires, it doesn't matter, but there's a lot, a third of Brazilian land is on fire. So the rest of the country is now dealing with the smoke and air pollution and the quality of air. So it is very difficult to hear that for us that don't live in Brazil, much harder for you to go through that again. Another catastrophic climatic type of nature's response to our foolishness as human beings, right?
yes, exactly. And that is going on year by year. Doesn't matter who is running the show. But for us, what it's important is
Mm,
that in this example, so in the very south of Brazil, the air, the smoke arrived. So for many days and weeks, actually, the sky and the land is all the same color. It's not very nice. We have to be very strong, and the old people suffer a lot, especially because the
can
lungs
imagine.
are not, yeah. So this grandfather, who already had a bad lung, of course, he got pneumonia,
Mm,
okay, and was hospitalized in this week. And actually the 15th birthday, the big party was yesterday night.
Mm.
So he was in hospital. But the will to dance the waltz, with her granddaughter,
His
and the
granddaughter. Yeah.
intensity of feeling drove his thoughts. Let's use the expressions that were used in this chapter. So it gave him a power that even the medical personnel couldn't understand how well in like he was almost going to intensive care. So for you to understand, the way that he was in the bad shape that he was. But like in and the daughter that I know, the daughter was really really, the mother of the teenager was really upset because she was sure that her father had stayed alive for the past 3 years because he wanted to be in his granddaughter and dance the waltz. So, and of course, she knows all about Jung and Joanna and everything. So she said, her mother is in the spiritual world, and she prayed a lot for the mother and the grandmother if they could help, and of course for mentors and Jesus and the Holy Mother and so. And what we okay, and there was a synchronicity so that you can connect the symbolic life and understand why Joanna is calling us to this self-discover. And Jussara talked to us about our treasure, the jewels that we have inside of us. And Marsha was talking about Taylor Swift, because what happened when she was praying in the hospital, in the emergency room, uh, and she said she was thinking of her mother, who has been in the spiritual world dimensions for some years now. And then a patient arrived near her, where the box where her father was, and had the same name of her mother. And the nurses were calling the patient, the lady, all the time. So she listened when she was praying. She was listening, the nurses calling like the name of her mother, right? Her
Uh-huh.
mother. She said, Anahy, this must have been a synchronicity. I said, of course it was a synchronicity. So this is faith, and it's in real life. It's like Jussara was saying, it's today is now. It's not in the future, not in the past. And what happened, I'm very happy to tell you that the grandfather went out of the hospital and danced the
Oh, that's
waltz with
awesome.
his. Yeah, it was awesome. So I think we need to understand that we all have this treasure and the capacity of self-healing,
Yes.
because we are spirits. We have the power of the spirit, and our spirits come from where? Right? We are all brothers and sisters. We come from the same source that we call God. So this power of the spirit is within us. And I think, just I don't know if you agree, that it's our the utmost, let's say, our biggest and greatest and more cherished treasure, the power that we have, the capacity to love. And this love creates a lot of, more love, and creates life of the spirit manifesting now, not tomorrow. And even if we have messed up a little bit in the past, but we have all this, this energy, this spiritual energy coming from within us. It's not from outside of us. I don't know if it makes sense.
It
What do you
does.
think, guys?
And I love to hear from you, Jusada. But I want to say this is the real Cinderella story, right? Where he is activating through his will and the prayers from his daughter. to be able to dance the waltz with his grandchild. I love that. Jussara, any thoughts?
Yeah, and with because I know that we are about to close up our presentation today. I was thinking about wrapping up by getting back to Taylor Swift and her thoughts.
Okay.
And by the way, she's a very notable woman and one to be admired in her personality, her gifts, and even how she's doing using her gifts, because she brings a lot of joy to the world as well. But I was thinking that, from this perspective, like you say, almost a documentary that probably was done almost 5 years ago,
Mhm.
that where she shows that something that I think it relates to many of us, if not the majority of us,
Mhm.
when I think that the measure of success, of my happiness, is the approval of others.
Yes.
And so there we are, thinking that, if people say how wonderful, how nice, it's because you're doing right. But this is by their standards. And here
Yes.
we are, seeing people cheering for us, applauding us, and saying that we are doing great, but it's still that is this void, this emptiness, and this uh, urge to find more, to get more. And this is the process of, our hidden self saying, please free me from this shadow, from this ego that I'm
Yes.
tired of being,
Yes.
just hidden there. And
Yeah.
so I think this is was our goal today, to really invite everyone to reflect on the importance of self discovery. And again, when we talk about self discovery, we're talking about self love.
Yeah.
It's the way of surviving. And I think it's the way that we can, when you have this kind of determination to live the Cinderella story as well, that will give us the stamina, the will to continue. And so that's the invitation that Joanna de Angelis gives us, or presents to us here from the beginning, is a basic requirement.
Yeah.
Greatest challenge, but you can do it. Start where you are.
Love it. I love it. So I wanted to say we are unfortunately at the end of our time, and right, let's be reminded. Taylor Swift, we keep speaking in reference to her, and maybe also some royalties. I'm just kidding. She calls after this big break that she unshackled, and I love it because when we read Joanna de Angelis, she refers to shackles, our own shackles, right? We imprison ourselves instead of being free. And this is the invitation of breaking away, just open up and be free. And I just want to say that this episode, indeed, Jussara, is this invitation for all of us to embark on this inner enlightenment. I'm going to reference what you said earlier, Anahy, without neurosis or even other psychotic phenomena. Just be free from where you are. But before we say goodbye, I want to say if this is the first time you are here with us in this program, please note that the Psychology and Spirituality weekly talks are indeed based on the work by Joanna de Angelis, and that we want to say before saying goodbye, that we need to recognize the sponsoring organizations that are TV Mansão do Caminho, the United States Spiritist Federation, the International Spiritist Council, and AMI Brazil. Make sure you hit subscribe if you haven't done so, and we'd love to hear from you. Please write down your questions, your remarks, your thoughts, your critique. We'd love to hear from you. With that, I want to say until the next episode, bye, everyone.
Bye bye.